Hello.
Hello.
Today we were it's all about safety.
Yes.
And I think this is maybe my favorite episode and the most important one because especially as a solo female traveler, safety is so important.
It is like maybe the most important thing.
Yes, it is. And I think we've both been super lucky as solo female traveler because we don't have like these crazy dangerous stories.
No, we don't. But that doesn't mean that we can't still always be
Ex-
like safe and on our guard a little bit.
No, exactly. And I think it's because, well, there's two things. First of all, I think we've been lucky. And also, I think that we put in place some safety measures to help. But also, like, as solo female traveler, we've met people with crazy stories.
Yes, we have.
I remember I met this, was it you? No, it wasn't you. I met this girl. I think it was in Vietnam. She was telling me she went to Colombia. Yeah, it was in Vietnam. She was telling me she went to Colombia by herself and she went out one day in Cartagena and she was with a guy. And when they were walking back to their hostel, two random guys just came into the road with guns, looking at them and just like saying, "We want all of your money." And she was so drunk that she
Oh,
just kicked the guy in the
balls.
yeah and started running to the hostel, and she was fine, and the guy next to her, he didn't do anything because he just froze and he got stolen everything.
I feel like her being drunk gave her the confidence and
Absolutely.
she wasn't like thinking about it and she just said, "Okay, this is how I'm protecting myself," and it worked.
Absolutely. And I was like, you're wild.
That is an insane story, but so many women, and like not just women, but
No.
obviously that's what we're talking about here,
Yeah.
have experienced scary situations.
Yes.
And I think it's interesting because you can experience the scariest thing in a super safe country and the opposite. You can feel really safe and nothing can happen in a country that's really scary. So it is this like not one shoe, not one size fits all. It's always going to be different.
Yes. And I think that the fact that it's not because the country is safe that you're safer. And I think a good example is my little sister, like Quebec, where I'm from. It's so safe, so safe. My little sister, when like for Halloween, she went out with her friends and she got GHB in her drink, like
Yeah.
the rape drug,
Mm-hmm.
in our little safe hometown. And she got it. Everything, like nothing happened because she had good friends and she was well surrounded. But still, she got it, and it was in a safe town. So two things about this is, first of all, it can happen everywhere, and if it can happen in a really safe hometown, well, why limit yourself of not like risking it in Thailand or in Vietnam? Like, I don't know if that makes sense. It's
It
like
makes perfect sense.
you can feel unsafe everywhere, and you can be unsafe everywhere if you put some measures. Although I think you can kind of go everywhere, and then it's just following your guts and listening to
Your intuition.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and so that's what we wanted to talk about today is just some of the things that we use and how we practice being safe solo
Yes.
female traveling. Um, I
And
know that we wanted to start with a little bit of an Airbnb story, how we have both traveled South America and both of us have stayed in huge villas because they're so affordable
they
in these
are.
countries. But I did it in Guatemala and I felt very safe in Guatemala. You did it in Colombia?
Oh, well, yeah, I did it a lot of places, but I think my most scary one was in Colombia.
And how we're saying it like, when you think about it, it's so luxurious to have a
It
big villa
is.
to yourself. But when it gets dark and you're by yourself, or even in my case, I was with two of my friends, we all didn't feel that comfortable.
Yes, because it's so big and you're all alone. And I remember, so I had this collaboration in Colombia to a huge villa, like the most luxurious villa ever. So big. I had a jacuzzi in a private spa, everything like so big. I had two beds for myself. And then at night, I was all alone in this, and I'm such a hostile girl. So I'm used to sleep in dorms surrounded by people. So, in a dorm, you scream, people come. It's like, no worries there. But in there, I was in my bed all by myself. I was working, close my computer, close the light. And as soon as I close the light, I hear these crazy gunshots. Crazy gunshots. So loud. It was maybe 1 a.m. So loud. And I'm all alone in my little villa. And in Colombia, I mean, gunshots can happen. And I'm on an island. So it's in Guarapi. And it's like, so it's a little bit outside of Guarapi. And the resort is on an island. So I'm like, are you kidding me? There's gunshots on an island. I'm literally stuck in the island. I cannot swim. And especially that in this lake, people were telling me you cannot swim in this lake because there's like plants that are can take you down. So I was like, it's the end of my life. That's it.
Plants that can. I'm curious about that. Let's unpack that later. Okay.
I don't have the details about it.
Just plants that can take you down. My mind is just like, huh. That sounds kind of cool. Anyway. Okay, so you're stranded on this island, basically.
Yeah, I'm like in this luxurious villa. For once, I have my bed. I'm not in the dorm. It's quiet, but there's gunshots, and I'm just freaking out. And I didn't sleep at all the whole night. I was like, "That's it. It's the end of my life." I literally texted my best friend to tell her I loved her.
Oh my god, that's so real. By the way, I love you.
I love you.
Thanks for a beautiful friendship.
I was like, if something happened, and I sent her like a video of like the sound of the gunshot, and the next morning when she woke up, she was like, this is crazy. But anyways, I'm still alive. The next day, I woke up, well, because I kind of slept, woke up, went to like the coffee shop to work, and then I heard the sound again, but it wasn't gunshot. It was just like, I don't know what they were doing. I think they were like exploding rocks or something near the resort. I don't know. But I heard it again and I was like, oh, that's just it. But for the whole night, I was just freaking out.
God. And your mind just goes crazy.
Oh, yes, it does.
With scenarios. And then when like nothing happens and you were totally fine, it's, I don't know, but is it worth that anxiety? I don't know. It depends on the person, I think.
It depends. But I know that at this time, what I was saying, because everybody, like my family, my friends didn't want me to come to Colombia by myself. And the whole night I was telling myself like, they were right. They were right. I'm going to die here. And they were going to say, we told her. Well, everything was fine.
And see, we're laughing about it because nothing happened to us. But it's so important to be aware and conscious because a lot of people aren't as lucky and have had really bad things happen. So we wanted to share some scary stories.
Yes, we'll start off with your stories.
Yes, your stories that you shared with us.
You guys have crazy stories. So I asked the question on my Instagram account, what is your scariest travel stories? And there's a few ones. I'm going to read a few ones because some of them are kind of wild. And some, like, I know one really is coming back like really often is, for example, this girl, she said, I almost got abducted by my Uber driver in Spain. And I feel like this is such a common struggle for women.
That is so true. And like not even with traveling, a couple of my friends in LA have had that same experience with human trafficking, unfortunately.
It is. Oh my God. I have this story. I need to tell you this story. You guys, listen up. This is not in the stories, but it's just, I just remember my friend when she went to Thailand. And we're not saying this to make you scared.
No.
We're just saying this so you're aware of what can happen, and then you put in place some measurement, well, some things.
Yeah, it's important to be educated on it, but not let it like hinder you from.
No, exactly. So we're starting with the scary story, but after we're gonna give you so much tips. You're gonna finish this episode really confident. Yeah. But listen up this story. So my friend, she was in Thailand, and they were leaving Thailand. And at the Bangkok airport, Bangkok is known for human trafficking. She was with her friend, and they were going through security, and there was this girl in front of them two big guys each side were holding her. So that's already a red flag. They go through security and didn't the security didn't ask for passports. They just like they went just straight in front. I don't know, they skipped the line. So another red flag. So my friend and her friend they're starting to say like that's really weird. And so they kind of follow them because, you know, like at the airport, you kind of follow the same people. And so after the security, they see them again and they're like, I don't know, like this time, my friend and her friend are like in front of the girl with the two pimp. And they turn around to see like the situation. And the girl, she has like, how do you call this? Like when it's blue, like
Bruises.
bruises all over like her, what's this,
Inside of her arm.
yeah, inside of her arms. And like she's not there at all, like completely like in the,
Disoriented, probably on drugs.
yeah. And there's the two big guys next to her. And then so my friend and her friend, they started just freaking out and they were like, this is not okay, like something bad is happening right now. And even at one point they were walking and the girl just fell on the floor. She was probably like too drugged or whatever. And my friend, and I'm telling this story and like I have chills right now, this is just so my friend, she started freaking out and she calls her dad. Her dad is like a big lawyer, known lawyer in Canada. So she calls her dad and her dad is telling her that it's so sad, but it's like, well, if you get, like, if you do something, they might get you too. So it's like the balance of like these two guys, they just went through security without a passport.
So potentially like working with somebody inside the airport then.
Exactly. You don't know, like, even if you go through to somebody in the airport, they just went with a girl without a passport. So there's something wrong here already. So they were like, you cannot really go to the airport because you don't know who's in this and who's out of this, like who can really truly help you. And you don't want them to know and then like take you because you know something. So they were like, try to figure out like maybe her flight, like where is she going? So they were like walking around the airport and the girl with the two pim, they were sitting to like waiting for a flight to Australia. And so they were like, okay, well, she's going to Australia. And her dad was like trying to help them, but they were like, you cannot go to them because you don't know, they might have guns. They might have like something, like you don't know these people. And if they have a girl in this shape at the airport, it's bad people for sure. So they were like, the best you can do is just to let know the flight attendants and maybe they could do something in Australia. But my friend was just torn and then they never know what happened because it's like you cannot get involved in this story, but at the same time you want to get involved, but at the same time you don't want to put yourself. What do you think about that? What would you have done?
That is really devastating, first of all.
I know she was devastated for like a month.
That is so heartbreaking to see that in real life.
It is.
I mean, I'm not in that situation, right? But when I hear that, I don't think I could just like let it go and watch it happen.
They didn't let it go, but they said it to the flight attendants, so they
Of
don't know what
course.
happened in Australia.
And I understand the dad's perspective. Like, you don't know who's involved, and it's clearly an inside job as well if people in the airport are letting them pass without any identification. But that is horrible. And I mean,
Horrible.
if I were in the situation, which I'm not, but if I could speak just from what I think I would do, I would probably tell like as many people as possible to then hopefully tell somebody that could do something about it.
Something.
Because if she's clearly on drugs and falling and bruises on her arms, two big guys, that is just not a normal situation
No.
at all.
No.
And so I think that I would tell as many people as I possibly could, because clearly that woman was being trafficked. And
Yeah,
that's really sad.
she was. But I think that the flight attendants, because you know, like the airlines are so outside, they're not like in team with the airports. So, and like a flight was, I don't remember the airline, but like a flight to Australia, it was probably a known airline. So I feel like telling the flight attendants, they probably see that.
Yes, and like in so many airports I travel in, they always have human trafficking numbers and
Yes.
signs that you can call.
Yes.
And so I think you're right. I think your friends telling the flight attendants gave her a really good chance because I'm pretty sure flight attendants get trained in this.
Probably.
And
And I should have one in the podcast.
Yes, that's so smart. And identifying signs because I've
Yeah.
heard some stories on TikToks of like an flight attendant sensing that somebody was being human trafficked and she somehow like slipped her a note.
Yes.
And so like we can only hope and pray that that's what happened, but
we
okay.
never know. We don't know the
Well,
end of the
that's
story.
one of the craziest
know.
stories I've heard.
I know. It wasn't planned, but now I'm like, I just remembered. I'm like, we need to talk about this. Okay, I'll read other quick stories because some people are wild. So I have my friend Nada. We're gonna have her on the podcast. She said, I slept outside on the floor in Africa in the middle of nowhere, having a flat tire because she's a motorbike girl, with weird guys from villages
Oh.
around her. I could never do that. Could you sleep outside?
Absolutely not. Knowing me, no, that's a hard pass. Even like camping in a tent for me is a lot, which I did that on the Inca Trail for 4 nights and I was so proud of myself. It's like no shower, just baby wipes. I did it. Did I like thoroughly enjoy that experience? In hindsight, yes, because it was so cool and unique. But that sounds like, I mean, camping is a luxury compared to what it sounds like she was doing.
Yeah, she was not camping.
So
There's
she had a
not the
flat
word-
tire. That's why she couldn't get anywhere.
Yeah, so she just stayed in the middle of Africa. I don't know which country in Africa.
Oh my God.
Slept outside on the floor. I could never. Okay, I have another one. Well, I have so many. I'm not gonna read all of them, but some of are really nice. Bus driver was drunk, unable to get us to the location. So my best friend had to call the shuttle company. Like, can you imagine being in a bus going to a destination, but the bus driver is drunk, and so the bus is like moving?
That's insane.
That's really insane. Also, getting stuck in the Colombian jungle and hitchhiking home on an avocado truck. So random. But I guess like this is so traveling.
That's
like
so
hitchhiking.
I hitchhiked
Sometimes-
I hitchhiked in Taiwan with a random truck driver and mine turned out fine. I'm alive, but
Sometimes you have to.
sometimes you have to.
You're just stuck. Okay. We arrived in Jakarta at 11 p.m. and the Airbnb was a fake account. We got scammed. That's my nightmare.
Yeah, I've heard of a couple people that happened to.
Same. And this is such, like, especially at 11 p.m.
That and you're so tired, you're so gross.
My God.
You're just like ready for a shower in bed and then
Yeah.
you have a plus you're getting scammed and all that money you spent, you potentially don't have money now to use for another place.
Yes, exactly. And you just less. Oh my God. That's really bad.
Yeah.
2 more. That's it. Getting locked up in a taxi in Vietnam, not getting led out until we paid a lot, and getting threatened.
Getting threatened?
Yes, thank you for my accent.
I thought you said tretinoin and I was like, oh, skincare. I'm like, I want to try that. That's interesting.
That happens a lot, though.
And something like about that is in Vietnam, the driver, like we would go to this was on a cruise ship, we'd go to the same place like every week. And so we knew the exact route that the taxi would take us. And we had an experience once where he took us on this long, winding, he literally took us maybe like 10, 15 minutes longer just to make us pay more money. Which I think we were like, no, bro, like this is the amount.
Yeah.
But yeah, sketchy shit. You got to be on your toes.
You gotta be on your toes. And I just remember another story because it happens in Vietnam. And I think we can finish this before moving on. I remember I was in Vietnam in Hanoi and I had this massage place. I loved it so much. I went there for like 3 days in a row. And the third day was a guy giving me the massage. Have I ever told you this
I
story?
don't think so.
Okay, I asked for a full body massage, like slept on, like lay down. He started a massage, and he massaged my butt for like 45 minutes. I'm not even kidding, but it took me time to realize, because in Asia they massage your butt, like it's like kind of, in Canada they don't really touch this, but in Asia it happens. Like the girls, they were massaging my butt. So when he started, I wasn't like freaking out. But then when he said it was done, I was like, wait, you haven't done my arm, you haven't done so many parts of my body, because you spent so much time on my butt.
And I think it's like so many people do get like it's a cliche and it's a stereotype, but happy ending massages in
Yes.
Asia.
Yes.
But like that just sounds like sexual assault to me. What happened to you? Honestly.
Like, I didn't ask for a happy ending.
No, of course not. That's so creepy. I hate that.
I know. So since that day, no boys ever, or men, sorry, we'll use the word men.
Yeah.
No man will ever massage me again.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah. Anyways, moving on to our topic, which brings me to the difference between women and men as solo traveler. I know our podcast is all inclusive. We're like open to everybody listening, but it's science proof. There's a difference between solo female traveler and solo man traveler, or well,
Solo male traveler? It's not
Uh,
even like a saying.
it's not even a thing, because it's much easier for them. And I think we both get so passionate about like a guy saying it's the same as female and men. We both get so like ready to fight and argue about this topic, because it is not fair. It's not the same.
No.
I'm not saying that because you're a woman you can't do it, but you have more challenge than a man. 100%.
Yeah, 100%. And we literally were talking to a guy about this like
Yes.
a week or two ago.
Yes.
He's 6'5", probably.
Yeah.
Huge guy.
Yeah.
And he was talking about our podcast. Also, the first thing he said, should I say this?
Yeah.
He said, "Oh, is your podcast about how not to get raped?" And I was like, first of all, I'm really into changing the way I've seen a lot of TikTok creators saying this, so this is so not my idea, but I've been really inspired by women on TikTok or whomever saying, let's change the narrative of like how not to get
Yes.
raped. And it really is like, should be teaching men not to be rapists. And I get that we have centuries of, misogynistic people and men, and so it's going to take time to change, unfortunately. But I don't know, that really bothered me how he said that, because it
Yeah.
also kind of like diminishes how we've been diminishes, is that the right word I want? Dismisses? Something. Insert word here that Emma's
You're
trying to
asking the French girl, so I have no idea.
But it kind of like downplays. There's so much about solo female traveling
Yeah.
outside of safety. Safety is just one part of like an amazing experience you're going to have, but it is a very important issue.
It is. And I think that this guy was just unaware of like the reality of the difference. And one big difference. So when he said that about the rape, like, are you going to teach women how to not be raped? It's so dumb, because it's true that we should educate men of not raping girls. But as a solo female traveler, I think you kind of have to, it's bad, but you have to think about what you wear and your
Yes.
clothing.
And he also
And it
said
sucks.
he
but-
also said that there's no difference between solo male travel and solo female travel.
Yeah.
When it's funny because Beatrice is like 5'4",
Yeah.
and he's 6'5". Like, I'm pretty sure there's a difference in their
There's
height
a huge
alone.
difference. Like, somebody in the street who wants to assault somebody, he has the choice between me, the little small 5'4" blonde girl, or this 6'5" man, really strong. The choice is so easy.
Yes.
Like, don't say that. Like,
Don't say that. It was
are you blind?
a little bit ignorant on his part,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Anyways.
So there is a difference, and like you were saying, clothing with what you wear.
It sucks, because And I think that I'm struggling with this because I know that in Southeast Asia, it's kind of like really open. You can pretty much wear anything. But when I went to Colombia, I was still wearing like middle, like even the top I have right now, it's like kind of open, you know? And in Colombia, I was wearing that, but I could feel the eyes of the men on me, and it's no fun.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's like the way you dress will like make you like more in danger necessarily, but just the way men can look at you is so uncomfortable. So sometimes I just prefer putting something more simple just to avoid that. And I know it sucks, but it's the reality.
And I think sometimes too, if you dress so differently than how women in that country dress, you are automatically like, oh, she's a tourist.
Yeah.
And even though it's like, I have red hair, I'm a white girl, like you have blonde hair, we still obviously can stand out as tourists. That's not what I'm
100%.
saying. But I think when you then add the difference in clothing, and I think there's a balance. Like I feel very easy dressing the way I normally would dress in Bali. But they're so respectful here.
Yeah.
And I think there's also like be respectful with, express yourself in your clothing, but respect the culture a little bit.
Yes. So important. Like even here, like visiting temple.
Oh, yeah.
Don't go there with like your little cute bikini top and like your little shirt. Like you have to be aware of the local customs.
Yeah.
But here, like for example in the villa, I don't mind. Like there's no we're not offending anybody, but when you go to specific, and I think religion is a big part of it, like if you visit like churches, like every religion places.
Yeah, no, that's so true. I think of like the one of the biggest places where I traveled where this was a thing was Saudi Arabia.
Yes.
And I was there for a month and I was doing a contract there performing, but it was the year before that they finally actually allowed tourists to come visit the country. And I want to make sure I'm getting my facts right, but I'm pretty sure it was like the year before it had just changed. And they also were allowing the tourists not to wear the abaya, which is like the long thing that the women wear to cover themselves along with a headscarf. But I decided just to fit in more to wear that. And underneath that, I had pants on and a long sleeve shirt. And I honestly felt like not every man, I met a lot of really lovely men there as well. But I think just walking through the streets, even when I was that covered, I felt like stared at, and in a creepy way.
Yeah.
Not in like a interesting, wow, she's clearly a tourist here because, I just look like one. But it was like, it felt creepy and inappropriate to me. So the thing is, like, even when you are wearing as much respectful clothing as you can, you have to, it's like sometimes you're going to put up with that.
Yes. And it's not my favorite part of it. It sucks, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, you kind of have to deal with it. I know that, like, even in Bali here, like, at the beginning before, like, signing up for the gym, and that's kind of a reason why I'm going to the gym instead of running outside, is that, like, the 2 first days I was running, I run in, like, a little sport bra with bike shorts, because that's the most comfortable thing ever to run. And I ran only 2 times starting from the villa, and the eyes on me were just so annoying. So I was just like really focusing like on the road and listening to my podcast and like not looking at anybody. And I literally, like, one of the girl from the house, she was walking and she was like, you totally ignored me. And I was like, I'm not ignoring you, I'm just ignoring everybody looking at me, and I'm just focusing on my run. Because I cannot handle this. I just hate it. I feel like a piece of meat sometimes.
And I think, like, with you saying that, it is important to remember, even if I dress, more skin in LA, I'm going to get looks.
Yes.
It's not like it's so different from where we're from.
No.
But I think it's more that we know what to expect when we dress that way.
Yeah.
We know if we're not like offending certain religions or anything. So that's where it's when you travel, it's like you do have to think a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because in LA, it's like, I know if I dress a certain way, I know what would maybe happen and I can handle that.
Yeah.
So yeah, just it's a whole thing.
Another thing to think about is the transportation. And I know it's such a struggle for a lot of people to figure out what is the best like way of transportation, because every country is so different. But some of them are much safer, some of them are much dangerous, and you have to figure this out because this makes a huge difference.
Yeah, it does.
Like I remember that in Colombia, everybody was telling me, you are only using Uber. Don't ever take a taxi driver outside of Uber. Just use Uber and look at the reviews. And I know it's a big thing in Colombia. And well, actually, the only time that Uber wasn't working, I just asked two random girls. That's a really funny story.
This is an insane story.
So I was in Santa Marta in Colombia, and Uber was not working, and I was like, I'm not taking a taxi by myself. This is way too dangerous because everybody told me not to do this. But I didn't have connection. Like my eSIM wasn't working. Nothing was working. So I was just like, I need to figure this out. And I see these two girls, kind of like me, with big backpacks. So I go to them and I'm like, hey, do you want to share a taxi? Like, which hostel are you going? And they ended up being so sweet. So we ended up chatting the whole ride in the taxi, and I felt so much safer during this 45-minute ride in the taxi that was technically not legit. And then it ended up that actually they were Emma's friend,
They were my friends.
but we didn't know this. That's so funny.
The craziest thing is I met Beatrice a couple months before this happened
Yeah.
in Bali.
Yeah.
This experience where she met these two girls was in Colombia, and nobody knew that they both knew me.
No.
And I had just done the Inca Trail with one of the girls that she's talking about, Alice. She was my roommate the whole 2 weeks on the trip.
It's so crazy.
And then weeks after they were in Colombia, I met them in Guatemala. And we only figured this out because I was getting one of their Instagrams, because the third friend that came with us, I hadn't met her yet. And she said, oh, you follow Beatrice? And I was like, yeah, she's my friend. And she's like, what do you mean she's your friend? Because Beatrice has a good following and she's just thought she was a content creator I followed. I was like, no, like she's literally my friend. And she's like, we know her. Like we met her at the airport. It was such like small world. And I think that's so fun about traveling is there kind of is a lot of crossover.
It is.
It's just weird and wild and crazy.
Yeah,
so.
but honestly, like this thing of like asking other girls, I think
Such a good tip.
it's such a good tip because as solo female travelers, we understand each other. And we are so supportive. Well, most of them are so supportive. And like when I asked your friends, even if they didn't know me, they were so nice. They were like, of course you can come with us in the taxi. You know, there was not like a maybe, no, like they were like, of course you can come. And I think as solo female traveler, we have to support each other like this. And like transportation, it's super expensive most of the time. So if you can share it, it's nice. And yeah, they were so sweet. Even if they didn't know me, we didn't know each other at all. Just a female to a female, we understand the reality of each other, and just don't be afraid to go see like other girls and ask them.
That is honestly some of the best advice I think you can tell people on their solo female journey, because every woman will understand that. And
They
I
will.
genuinely think 100% of the time they would agree.
Yeah.
Because they just know, like girls just know how that feels. And so don't ever feel shy, especially if you're feeling unsafe and you see some other girls, just ask.
Yes, or you can just like join them. Like even if you feel unsafe in the streets, for example, you can just go to like a group of girls and say, hey, I really feel unsafe that like there's this creepy man following me. Like, can we just act like we're friends? Or like even to a man, you could do that to a man, but usually I go to women because they really understand the reality.
Yeah, and I think another good thing is if you are walking later at night, or if you do feel unsafe and you see a group of people walking or a couple, like just walk a little bit closer. You don't have to like be like right behind them and be all weird, but if you're just in close proximity to other
Yes.
people walking, gonna make you feel so much safer.
Yes, and like if something happens and you scream, well, they're just next to you. So that's such another good tip.
Yes. And
Oh.
you learn these things
Yes. Well, we learned this on the
on the real.
real. Now we're just giving it to you before you start to help you.
So we were talking about Uber, but also public transportation is also another.
Public transportation is such a big, I think, not struggle, but I think you really have to consider it depending on the country you're in.
I was just thinking that.
Yeah. In Europe, no problem. I took it in Colombia, no problem during the day, but everybody told me not to take it during the night. So I know people did it and they were fine, but a lot of people were telling me just avoid public transportation during the night. In Southeast Asia, there's a lot of sleeper bus. I had no problem, but I heard so many stories of like, especially at the borders, if you cross borders with the bus, it kind of can be sketchy sometimes.
Yeah, and I think with public transport, I've had friends, this hasn't happened to me, but where they've had stuff stolen,
Yes.
like specifically on a sleeper bus in Thailand,
Yes.
where they woke up and their stuff was gone and it was with them. Like,
Oh,
I know. So, I mean, I don't know if they were a little reckless on their part or if it was just a crazy situation, but they had a lot of money stolen.
really? And it was on them?
It was on them, but like, that's why it's like always have your valuables because you're going to have your big bag under
Yeah.
the bus and then you're going to have a small personal item with you.
Yeah.
And just like be conscious. I think that was probably a fluke incident because that's pretty rare where your personal item
Yes.
when you're sleeping is stolen. Like,
Because I've heard a lot of stories of people getting like their bag under the bus getting stolen, or like putting, for example, their computer in their big backpack under the bus. That's really more risky because the buses stop everywhere. No matter the country, they stop everywhere all the time. And people are getting in and out in the under the bus, so they can access your computer and stuff. So that I can kind of understand why they get stolen. But if you have money on you, I've done it so often. But usually I will put like my little, so I have a little Lululemon bag with all of my money, and I will cross my arms if I want to sleep on the bag,
yeah.
and I put my cell phone in this little bag, and then I have my big backpack with my computer, like cameras and stuff, with me in the bus. And usually I will put like my feet in the
Straps.
straps, just
Yeah,
so
same.
to help it a little bit.
Yeah, because sometimes you just can't avoid a bus. Like South America, for example, every destination we took a bus to.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just can't avoid
Public
public transport. And honestly, like I lived in Hong Kong for 4 months. I took the public transport every single night. I was always taking the subway. That's how I got home. And it was effortless. It was easy. It was like I felt safe. There are places where
Yes.
you're totally fine doing public transport, but do your research.
Do your research and talk to other travelers. Don't do your research on like a website of somebody that has never been there, because they don't know.
Yeah, and talk to the locals because they know the best out of anybody.
They know. And like, especially like if you stay at hostels and hotel, ask the reception. They're gonna tell you.
Yes.
So yeah. Also, if you're like, you're not sure about the safety and you feel kind of unsafe and you have the choice between public transportation or like paying a little extra for a taxi, but you would feel much safer, just pay the extra. Just pay.
That is so true. And another good thing, a good tip that reminded me of what you just said is if your hostel offers a shuttle to pick you up, especially if you're arriving late at night,
Yes.
they're always going to probably charge a little bit more, but you just have peace of mind. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to figure it out when you arrive.
Yes. And like, especially when you arrive in a new country, it's so nice to have like just somebody at the airport waiting for you with your little sign with your name. It's so much like, oh, at least I know for the first 24 hours in this new country, I have no idea I'm at, where I am, what are the rules. It's so much like, it's so good for your anxiety, and like so comforting.
Yeah, and you know you're going to be with probably other travelers arriving that day. Like you just that is something I invest in if I'm in a country where I feel like a little here in Bali, I didn't feel that at all. I was like, no, I don't need to pay for
Yeah,
that.
no.
But there are countries where just pay for that hostel or hotel shuttle.
Yeah.
And you don't have to worry, you don't have to think. It sounds like such a small detail, but it is a really it like feels luxurious then.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Good tip.
Which takes us to, if you are planning your first solo travel experience, South America versus Southeast Asia.
Southeast Asia.
Because those are two really popular places people do backpacking trips or just
Yeah.
trips.
Southeast Asia, please start there. Or yeah, no, there's no R. I think you start in Southeast Asia, and also I think it's such. So there's two of my experience, and I don't know if you agree, because we are different type of travelers. I'm way more hostels, and like I've had my party era also. Anyways, Southeast Asia, the community of backpackers in Southeast Asia and the community of backpackers in South America are so different.
So different.
Southeast Asia, much younger, much more partier, and like it's a lot of people are traveling here for months. Instead of like South America, I don't know if you agree with that, but the travelers I met in South America, yes, of course, there's like long term travelers, they're everywhere, but much more people that were just traveling for like Americans or Canadian, like just traveling for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, just sit for like a short amount of time with like everything planned out. I feel like in Southeast Asia, I found every new country I've been to, I found a little family and I've traveled with them the whole time I was visiting this country because a lot of travelers are traveling for a long time. But in South America, in Colombia, I couldn't find this group of people I kept traveling with. If that
I
makes
felt the
sense.
same way. I honestly, I didn't meet, I think I met like one or two solo travelers in South America. And that is just my isolated experience.
Yeah.
I am sure tons of people do it. And I was doing hostels there. And everybody was with a friend or everybody was with a boyfriend or traveling with two of their friends from home. It was so different as opposed to Southeast Asia. It's effortless to find solo travelers. You find them constantly.
Yes, and you see this commute. So I saw this TikTok recently, and it made me laugh. It's like when you're traveling in Southeast Asia, it's like you have the same characters following the same road as you, and like especially when you do like Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos. This is such like a common road. I met travelers. I remember that in Vietnam, I felt like I traveled all around Vietnam and I was meeting travelers that I met to other places all the time. So I was literally walking in the random streets of Vietnam of a new city I just arrived. And I was like, hey, I know you. Hi, how are you? Hey, I know you. Hi, how are you? I felt like I was in my hometown in a totally different country because the backpackers are doing the same roads.
Yeah.
So you see each other again. And even like I met people in Vietnam that I met again in Thailand without knowing they were there. Like it's crazy how like it's just the community of backpackers here is so strong and it's much easier to make like to connect with travelers, I think. And
yeah. And I think just overall, I do agree that I felt a lot safer in Southeast Asia.
oh yeah.
A lot. But that being said, like when you are more experienced and when you have traveled and you're feeling more confident, South America and Central America are incredible.
They are. It's so beautiful. Don't skip it.
Do not, because there are like so many incredible places to see there. It's beautiful and there are just amazing people. We're not saying that. It's just
No.
there are it's just a little bit different. And so you have to be maybe just more aware there, I would say.
Yes, it's just like I think that Central America and South America is so beautiful, but having a little bit more experience makes your trip easier, less stressful also, because you like developed skills that can help you in different situations.
Yeah.
Because I know, for example, in Colombia, I had to hide my cell phone all the time. And that's something really, really small, but that it's something you don't have to think in Southeast Asia. And it's something less to worry about because your first trip, you have so much to worry about. So if it can help you to like have less like little struggles that you have like to be careful about, well, just start to an easy destination. And I think Bali is a really good one. Vietnam is a good one. What else? I think Bali and Vietnam are like my favorite two.
Bali is such a, I mean, it is so easy here.
Yeah, it is.
And I have never felt scared once by any of anybody.
Never.
And because they're really strict with safety and violence here.
Yes.
Like I remember our tour guide was telling us last year, because we were traveling Ubud together, Beatrice and I, and he was talking about how if you even just like get drunk at a bar and punch someone in the face, if you're a tourist, you are immediately deported and you are banned for life from Bali.
Yes.
Literally for life. You can
Yes.
never return. And I think he was saying if you're a local and you did something like that, which
it's like prison.
it's you go to jail for at least like 3 months or
Yeah, yeah,
something.
yeah,
So that, because it is so strict in that way, which like honestly, go them. Like violence should
Yes.
never be tolerated.
No.
And so that has just set this like level of safety, I think. Because it's
Yes.
not worth it for anybody to get in a fight because
No.
you're
drunk.
yeah, you're screwed. You're never coming back.
Exactly. And also they believe a lot about like karma and about like, so that's why they're always so sweet, smiling and stuff, and like just being happy people, just wanting to be so kind to you. And it's also because of the karma, because it's if you're sweet to people, well, they're gonna be sweet to you. And I think this whole mindset helps because they won't be mad at you. They won't be like really aggressive to you because they don't want karma to like have people being aggressive to them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So-
Can't recommend it enough.
Yes, we're big fans. Okay, now it's time for a quick safety tip for solo female travelers. You start.
Okay, my first one, this might be obvious, but I'm going to say it, is always have your phone charged and always have international data.
Yes, please. So important.
Like literally, that's a deal breaker if you don't.
It is a deal breaker. And I remember I was in Vietnam, in Sapa. My phone was out of battery. So, of course, I had no connection. I had no charger. And I was just, Sapa is really small. So, I managed to find back my hostel. But I walked for like an hour. And after an hour, I started being worried because I was just like, I have no idea where I am. So, this is such a good tip.
Yes.
Such a good tip. Also, my first one I wrote was the location, because you have, well, two things about the location. First of all, really highly recommend downloading the offline map of the location you're in. So in case, I don't know, your datas are not working or you don't have Wi-Fi, at least you have access to this offline map and you can find your way back.
That's so true, because there's going to be times when you just, even if you have international data, you don't have service.
Exactly.
So download, it's on Google Maps. You can download a whole country, a whole city, wherever you are, and it will completely work offline. It is such a game changer.
It is a game changer, and it's so important because, for example, when I was lost, well, maybe I couldn't find Wi-Fi, but of course I could have like found like a charger, so at least I could have charged my phone, and then I have this offline map that can bring me back to my hostel. So this is so important. And also about location, you have to see if your place is in a good neighborhood, a good location. It's so important and so underrated.
Yeah, that's really true too.
And I think staying in hostels are usually always in good area. Because, I don't know, it's just a vibe. But when you're looking at Airbnb or hotel, you can end up in a really bad neighborhood. And it's no fun.
Yep. And then you're just not going to enjoy it as much.
No, exactly. So just look online.
My next one is have some sort of app on your phone to be able to communicate with locals.
Yes.
Which I
please.
recommend Google Translate.
Yeah.
Because I'd say like it's not a huge issue that I've experienced with a language barrier. But if there's ever a time when I don't know, needing help and somebody doesn't speak English or your native language, you need something just in case. And I recommend Google Translate.
Yeah, you can download offline as many languages as you want. And even with Google Translate, you can take a photo of like a menu or something and it can translate the whole thing. It's such a good tip.
Yeah.
My last one, because, well, I had offline map and location together. My last one is lying. Become a professional liar. Just nobody will know. You don't have to share all of your life with random people. And especially, I feel like taxi drivers and Uber ask so many questions. And okay, most of them are probably just being kind, but they don't know where. They don't need to know how long you're staying, where you're going, if you're traveling alone. I'm never, ever, ever, ever saying I'm traveling alone. I'm always like, oh, I'm going to meet my friend. I'm going to meet my boyfriend. I usually have an imaginary boyfriend all the time. Just lie and don't feel bad about it because it's so important to lie. I think it's like essential.
And I think it's like a balance of don't be too nice.
Oh, yes.
Because you're allowed to like walk down the street, and if people are yelling things at you and asking you questions, you're allowed to walk by and not acknowledge it.
Yes.
But I think it's like, I say a balance and don't be too nice, but I also say like don't be rude and in a way where like they're going to get aggravated and
Yes.
like come for you more because you're having an attitude. Just like be neutral. Act like you I honestly, what I do is I act like I don't hear them and I just
Yes,
keep
same.
going. I don't acknowledge it. I don't like respond.
Same.
And yeah, you're so right. Don't share too much information. Just be like, I'm staying around. Like, don't be specific. You owe them nothing.
No, exactly. And especially like usually I will say I'm leaving the country really soon, even if I'm staying for like a month. I'm just going to say like, yeah, I'm leaving like tomorrow. Or so then you never know who you're talking to. But
Yeah.
if it's someone with bad intention, you're leaving tomorrow, well, they will move on to the next girl
Yeah.
or the next person.
My last one is always have a little bit of cash on you.
Yes.
Because it's so common where smaller towns or villages or even like big cities sometimes, if you need a bus or like if anything, if you're ever in a pinch and they don't accept card, you just have some cash on you.
Yes, and I think well, a quick tip like for this is that don't take your cash at the airport because the rates are really high.
Yeah.
You can wait, except if you have to pay your taxi with cash. Just wait and go to like a bank and don't go to shitty like sketchy ATM. Just find a bank to like avoid traveling, like getting your card stolen.
Yes.
Awesome.
So
To end up this episode, we're ready for our
Solo Female Traveler of the Week.
Okay. So this time, it's a girl. I've been following her. We've been chatting on Instagram. She's such a girl boss. Her name is, I'm sorry, I will do it again. Okay, her name is Kristen. I don't know if I pronounced it right. She's a hitchhiking girl. She's been hitchhiking for 5 or 6 years as a solo female traveler. I think this is completely insane. Like, I'm not sure if I'm ready to do this, but it's so nice. She's so inspiring. And her content is so raw. And she shares, like, all of the ups and downs of hitchhiking. But she has so much experience as a solo female traveler. She's just a sweetie. And, yes, she's been hitchhiking. And I think it's nice to follow her because it shows, like, hey, she's a female and she's hitchhiking. And even if it's so out of like what society can tell women to do, she's doing it and she's enjoying it and she's just sharing her journey on Instagram, and I just think she's amazing.
That is so inspiring and so cool and so authentic to what she wants to do with her life, I think.
It is. And like this episode is all about safety, and yes, we started the episode with scary stories, but look at her, look at us. We've been traveling for so long and we have good experiences. Yes, we have like little scary stories, but at the end of the day, we're enjoying it, and no story stopped us to solo travel because
And
It's
I think what you said is like, we want to be educated and inform people, and you have to educate yourself on these things.
yes.
But also, don't let it stop you from living your dreams and going for it and trying new things, because, like, we clearly have been doing this for a very long time now, and we're still doing it.
Yes.
So I really believe that it's like important to know what can happen, but like, don't be so scared that you don't go out and do the things you want to do.
No, exactly. And again, we're so happy to receive all of your questions. We are answering everybody. Like, it's our goal to create this community. And also on school, if you're part of the community on school, you can connect with other solo travelers from the community. So if you're going to Greece, for example, well, maybe there's some other people listening to the podcast that are going to Greece at the same time, and then you can connect, and then you already have a friendship, and you already have something in common because you both love traveling and you're trying solo traveling. So to wrap it up,
To wrap
thank
it up,
you so much for being here. Don't forget to give us a 5-star review, please.
get that 5-star review.
Please. And yes, just write to us. We're so happy. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be a story. You can just write to us, share your stories. We're creating this community. We love you so much.
Yes, thank you for
Thank
listening.
you. See you next week.
Bye bye.